MP Professor Rajiva Vijayasinghe claims that the bill on the 19th Amendment to the Constitution contains points that are harmful to the media. Meanwhile, senior journalist Victor Ivan says that the country has no need for a constitutional amendment in which information is hidden from the people.
Committee stage amendments to the 19th Amendment to the Constitution were introduced recently. Section 28 of the bill reads that under election law or a referendum, in the event that guidelines issued by the Elections Commissioner during an election or a referendum are not complied with, legal action can be taken on criminal charges, even against privately owned media institutions. The maximum punishment is a prison sentence of 3 years or a fine not exceeding 100,000 rupees.
For instance, he tried in this draft to actually institute discipline through a competent authority. And the Supreme Court struck that down. But what has he done in these drafts? He has actually smuggled in something that would maybe criminalize the media into a clause that is about the public service. The clause originates the public service. If they don't follow what the Election Commissioner says, etc., 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 can be punished. I think that makes sense because the public service is duty-bound to follow the laws of the land, and not only the laws of the land, but any regulations. Now, I think the media as well as media institutions should follow it. But I don't think you can allow this to be criminalized unless the offences are very clearly categorized. You can't have regulations for an election in the class of the Criminal Justice Code. There has to be a better way of doing this. I think we have to think about this very carefully.
Now, Professor, this clause that they've added in the final draft of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, do you think that this would suppress media organizations if this comes through?
It will act as a threat. I hope they will not be repressed, and I hope they will fight any case that comes up. But I think it's an attempt to be a threat, and it's an attempt to actually silence people. To me, I think you need much better regulations, but I also think if we get electoral reform on the lines that we have canvassed for ages with constituencies instead of this madhouse, some of the abusers that we faced in the last few years will also get less.
Now, media organizations don't have a set of code of ethics. We don't have regulations. So who really calls the shot here?
Well, I think it's time you all did develop this. There's something called the Press Council. I think that should be expanded to really institute a system of immediate replies. I think the media should do that.
Sections that have not been approved by the Supreme Court cannot be included in the amendment. For example, the initial draft of the amendment contained many sections that would require a referendum and sections that deprive media freedom. These had been removed in line with the Supreme Court order, the Declaration of Human Rights and the Freedom of Expression. We wish to responsibly state that at this instance, that if the UNP is trying to include these sections to the bill on the amendment, then they will not receive our support. I see the 19th Amendment as a distortion. This is because the reform that was promised to the people is different to the bill that has been tabled in Parliament once again. When the bill tabled in Parliament was presented to court, it changed further. The people do not know what the changes are. This makes it clearly evident that what is going to be presented is a distortion of what the people were promised and what they expect. Passing a serious amendment to the Constitution without subjecting it to a referendum is not good. What I feel is that the nation needs a new birth. But if it is to be a distorted birth, then it is better for the country that this birth does not happen.